Right, okay. So we've got Mary joining us today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a kind of quick recap of the drawing side of things that I did last week, and then just go on to a little bit of painting, and I'll use acrylics today, and then perhaps other weeks I'll try and use some other mediums. So second week of the animals project, and I'm going to use Reggie's the model. So in terms of drawing, what I tend to do, so this was the demo I started on Tuesday, so that's how good did that look. So looking to kind of paint that onto there. For sort of drawing for painting, what I really want to make sure is that I can kind of fit that on there. But I don't even like really tiny in the middle. I need them sort of comfortably sitting in the space. So what I found was that if I measured his head, say from here to his nose, just with a pencil, that would fit in about.
Is there not a ruler?
Well, you could use a ruler, but I've got to start reading measurements then. Pencil's good enough. A stick will do. It's just nearly 3 times his head would fit in there. So whatever I decide on here, so if I think like the top of his head wants to go there, I don't know, I'm guessing about there. And it's quite a good practice just to try and, guess your proportions. Just see if you can, see how good you are. And then if I measure that, let's see if that is 3 and a bit. 2 and a bit it needs to be. 1, 2. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Sounds surprised.
Well, it's the sort of thing you kind of, over the time, you just get a sense of proportion. You just get a sense of how big something's going to be. It's just like if you were judging anything, if you're driving or something like that, you're judging things. You're judging distances and spaces, and the more you practice, the more you'll get accustomed to it. From here, his head is pretty central that way, and I would say there's just a tiny bit of a tilt. It's the tiniest bit of a tilt, probably a fraction of a degree. So if that's like the middle of the board, I just want to maybe make a centre line like that, just a tiny bit of a degree. Because I can see that his eyes, they're not horizontal like that, they're like that. They're just about that much. Judging how far down from the top of his skull, between his nose and the top of his skull, his eye level would be. I'm thinking perhaps about 2/5 of that. So I'm thinking about there for his eye level. I'll pop that in there. And then I think about there for his eyes. Maybe a little bit closer. Again, it's just having a chancing it, trying it, and then seeing. You can do some measurements to see. So what I can do is if I measure between his eyes, so sort of here to here, and then perhaps from the bottom of his, almost like the corner of his eye, so measure that and see how many times that fits in, and that is nearly 2. Okay, so that's nearly 2. So if I make that the size of the eyes, I need to make sure that fits in nearly 2. So maybe a tiny bit closer in, just for the start. That's a bit better, yeah, so there. So once I've got a few guidelines, I'll then start to draw into those spaces. So I'm thinking one eye here. You could do all this in just very lightly if you wanted. I mean, what you could also do is just kind of get a sense of the whole, rough inner shape. Well, I would suggest doing that quite lightly. Maybe hold the pencil at the end of the pencil rather than sort of in a very controlled way, just so that you can just kind of feel your way around the shapes. And this is often how I would start painting. I'll just try and do some light guidelines just to sort of get a visualisation of where the big shapes are going to go. So, but once I've got the eye there, I can then think, well, that's the side of the face, that's the side of the head. As I say, his nose wants to come down to here. Get a sort of nose shape. it's quite nice to just look at some of these shapes of light and dark. So there's quite a shadow shape there, and there's a highlight shape sort of in there, and then a shadow shape there. So it's kind of breaking it down into big shapes of light and dark, shadow shape in there. So I'll do that with the darker one. Doesn't need to be too. Just try and get the bigger shapes in. And this will, I mean, you could do this with a paintbrush, but this will help me guide where the lights and darks are. Something like that. Top of his head's there. His ears, just look at how they, what you could do is like drop so that's the sign of his ear. If I drop that, a vertical line down there, it's pretty much in line with his eye. If we take that up there, I know that's where his ear needs to start. And just working out so if we've got the side of the face, it's difficult to see that that lines up with anything, but what I can do is if I dropped a line down there, it creates a little bit of space there, a little bit of a shape, which, you know, you could call that like a negative space.
Yeah.
So I know that that's going to need to go something like that. So I think his ear's going to come out to about there. Let me just do the same over here. I'll just wrap this one in quickly. Something like that. Yeah, and then you carry on now. Sorry?
You make it look so easy.
So there's nothing complicated. It's not like we've got to do some maths or anything like that.
Just look at the shapes, see what lines up this way or that way. What the light bits, what the dark bits. Things like I like using like this line on his neck. If I carried that on, that would sort of go through his eye. So I'll go backwards. I know that's roughly where that needs to be. You can do the same.
Vanishing point. Is it like a
No,
vanishing point?
not as such. No, it's more just sort of just seeing. You know, if you can see something that is like going in directions, just sort of carry it on and see where that. So I've carried that one on. It goes just under his nose through. So it's just trying. What it is relating everything back to here. It's a relational way of seeing things, seeing how one bit relates to the other. That's all it is. And it is easy, just get in the habit of doing it.
It's very easy.
Oh, it's all
It's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking. Just get into that way of thinking.
Yeah, I could do the same here, his shoulders here. And then you could just carry on. You know, you could, wherever his elbow is, you can line that up with something. This elbow here goes up to here. You can think, well, that's maybe almost like a head's distance across there. So that's roughly where this elbow needs to come. But I would work my way through. Actually, what I would do is work my way through this shape here, this shape in this marking. We've got a light bit coming out here and here. So I find working through the middles of things, the middle of the
you're
tool
doing
shape.
inside out.
Yeah, working inside out,
Yeah,
that kind of inside out way of drawing.
Yeah.
I find it far easier to get things accurate that way. I think we you know, when we think to draw something, we want to draw like an outline,
Yeah, I
or
do,
profile. I think that's the instinctive way to go about it. But if you can think in terms of like the structure, the underlying structure, or any shapes you can see, you know, that will get you from these places. So it's like, got the eyes there, but if you can get all these little shapes in, it will just help you draw the structure. So it's quite a few different ideas, but that would be the drawing. I do a tiny bit of painting, but I'm not going to take too much time. So in terms of painting, I just use a bit of acrylics. I haven't got anything mixed yet. I would simplify the background because there's an awful lot of clutter there, I'm afraid. He's not a very tidy dog. Makes a right mess of his bed. So yeah, I'll just simplify all that. Perhaps a lighter colour at the top, slightly lighter beige. It's probably going to pick up all this pastel now. That might be a
Did
bit.
you draw that with a pastel pencil? Or?
Yes, yeah, I do. Because I'm thinking like acrylics. I mean, you could do this with oils or acrylics. Pastel pencils are quite nice because you could lighten it up a bit. So it's very easy to wash this out or just rub it out. Sometimes I've just started using graphite a little bit on paintings, but I find it smears very easily. So I tend to prefer the pastel pencils myself. But I would probably just get some colour and tone in the background. That's just picking that up a bit. Actually, if I am drawing for myself, I mean, I've drawn this quite, in colours that you can see, so it's more for your benefit. I would tend to use quite a lightish grey, just slightly darken the background forward, so that I can see it, but it doesn't then intrude into the colours so much when you start putting paint on. So it doesn't need to be, you just need a bit of a guide, because a lot of the drawing I'm still doing with the paint as I go, which is why I like mediums like oils and acrylics, because I can keep drawing as I go, rather than draw everything all out and then fill it all in. So that I work the background all over, the same down here, and then probably work some of the darker tones in first. So black dogs are quite hard to paint because they just absorb all the light. It's not really.
Especially a black dog.
I don't know why she couldn't get a white on the but yeah. So yeah, just working just kind of blocks of shadow really, blocks of light and dark. I quite like to paint eyes in fairly early because I think they're a good reference point. So I'll just put a little bit of a lighter colour in there where the eyes are going to be, and I can work into those.
Do they usually come halfway up the head like they're doing humans, or not?
I don't think they do, no. I think,
Eyes.
yeah, eyes, yeah, if you look at a human skull,
Yeah.
from the top of the head to the chin, your eyes will be halfway. No, I don't know. I think animals are different, yeah. I think the thing is,
Sort of dog as well, doesn't it?
yeah, it does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the greyhounds, I keep wanting to make his nose a bit smaller, because, but they're very stretched out. Really. So yeah, I'd work, kind of work the darks in anywhere that you see dark. And some will be like mid-tones as well. So somewhere in between the lightest and the dark. This bit here is a bit, no, that bit's dark, isn't it? I'm getting myself confused.
Yes, that's a problem. Get lost in what you're doing.
Yeah. I've drawn all over the picture, so I can't see it.
End up with
That's
an
it.
eye on his nose.
Yeah. But yeah, if you just try and think in terms of shapes, abstracted shapes. So light shapes, dark shapes, mid-tone shapes. And then, if you want to make it a bit more, naturalistic, then the fur effect would go on the next layer, really. Just try and soften out on the next layer. But I think where most notice individual bits of fur is where one light bit meets a dark bit. And that's where you perhaps want a softer edge. But in other areas, it's just like a solid dark area. So you wouldn't need to sort of start drawing lots of hairs in there. So that'd be the darker bit. I'll just do a little bit on the lighter bit, but you can see from the other example, perhaps have a slightly lighter tone there, lighter tone here. And as soon as you start to build this, it starts to read as a three-dimensional form. And that's the main thing first, and then go on to the portrait side of it.
He looks as if he's about to go and get you by the throat.
Yeah, it needs a bit of softening in the eyes, doesn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, it would look a bit more like that, but kept going for another 5 minutes. Is that okay? Is that enough?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You.
This is what I wanted.